What's going on, Jam Fam? And welcome back to the gaming station. So today is probably going to be a really quick video for me, but I'm so excited that gear is being added to the game because it adds so much depth to the end game and it gives end game players something to grind for, which is something we haven't had in a really long time. So today I just wanted to talk about gear, just a little bit of all the stuff that we know and my initial thoughts on it. And I know the sneak peeks are going to be coming out within the next few days. And as a heads up, I am trying to get another YouTuber to come on the channel and do a podcast to talk about gear with me. So after the sneak peeks come out, we're going to do that podcast and we're going to talk about gear a lot more in depth from what we were told through the sneak peeks. So in this video, I just want to go over what the 5 gears are and what I think about them initially, just by looking at them from Brawl Talk and the descriptions of them, and possibly what I think about when I'm thinking about trying to add them to a brawler as of right now. That might change down the road when the sneak peeks come out, but we'll talk about that in a later video, like I said. And also, I'm not going to be talking about builds in this video specifically. I'm going to save that for the podcast because we need some content to talk about in the podcast as well. So in the podcast, we'll talk about gear and builds and what it applies to on certain brawlers. But in this video, like I said, we're just going to talk about what the gear is and what I'm thinking about it right now. All right, with all that out of the way, let's get started. Okay, so real quick, the 5 pieces of gear from Brawl Talk are going to be speed, which increases your movement speed in bushes, health, which allows you to recover HP while standing still, damage, which gives you a damage buff after you drop below 50% HP, resistance, which will reduce your stun duration and slow effectiveness on your brawler, and shield, which will give you extra HP in the form of a recoverable shield. Okay, so for the most part, these are okay, but they're not amazing in my opinion. I'm honestly hoping they add more gear down the road because right now, a lot of these feel really niche in my opinion. Now, obviously, these are just the first generation of gear, so I'm not saying that they're bad by any means because it's a whole new mechanic being added to the game. I'm just hoping that down the road, we get more gear that actually does more things. Something like recharges your super a little bit faster or gives you more reload speed or stuff like that. Stuff that can be used on a lot more brawlers. Because honestly, right now, the only 2 pieces of gear that are going to be effective on all brawlers right now are going to be shield and damage. Because like I said, the other ones are all very niche or very use specific. And in my opinion, the biggest culprit of this is probably going to be resistance. Because honestly, that gear, I don't see when you're ever really going to want to use it, except maybe as like a counterplay to like M Super or like a Crow gadget or something like that. But for the most part, resistance isn't going to really play a factor in a lot of matches. So I don't see why you would ever really want to build it unless you're just like a true end game player and it's the last piece of gear you want to build. So in my opinion, I think the best general build is going to be to get the damage and the shield gear first and then see what happens down the road. But I also had a thought while I was getting ready to start doing this video, and that was that there are going to be pieces of gear that pair really nicely with a gadget or a star power, and that needs to be considered before you build gear for every brawler. Now, of course, there's going to be brawlers where their star powers and gadgets don't really synergize very well with the gear that we're going to be getting into the game. A really good example of that is one of my favorite brawlers, Carl. He's not really going to care about the speed, health, or resistance pieces of gear, so honestly for him, you're just going to want to slap damage and shield on him and call it a day. But then there's a brawler like Rosa who benefits insanely from the speed piece of gear, especially when you consider her Grow Light gadget and her Plant Life star power. That's going to make her a monster when she enters the bush, and then she can put bushes where she wants, which makes it even easier for her to take advantage of the buff she's getting while she's in a bush. And I think Tick is going to be another really good example. I think Tick's really going to like the health gear, especially when paired with his well-oiled star power. This is going to make it so that when Tick is hanging out behind a wall, he can just stop and pretty much immediately start healing up because of the synergy between the health gear and his well-oiled star power. Now, like I said in the beginning, I'm not going to talk about a ton of builds in this video because I am trying to get that podcast lined up, and we do need content to talk about in that podcast. So make sure you got notifications on so you do get notified when I do get that video out later on in the week. But yeah, this video is more of me just wanting to talk about gear right now, making sure you guys know what the gear is actually going to do, and basically how you should be thinking about gear, especially when considering gadgets and star powers when you're putting gear onto a brawler. In the meantime, answer these questions down in the comments. What is an interesting build that you're considering putting on a brawler, especially when considering their gadgets and star powers? And also, what's a good piece of gear that you would like to see added in a future update? Because like I said, I fully expect that they're going to be adding more gear down the line, that this is just the preliminary stuff, and eventually we're going to get maybe 5 or 6 more pieces of gear to help round out a lot more builds and to try to get a few more general builds that actually work across all brawlers and not just these super niche ones that only work on specific ones. But that's going to do it for this one. I want to thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.